In these videos, we are going to look at the very powerful feature called Color Guide. This used to be called Live Color, and you may remember it from Adobe Cooler when it was actually only available on the website. But this may look familiar, like the Adobe Cooler ability to pick different colors based on different color harmonies and get to spin around the color wheel and keep your harmonies all in check. So we're going to go into detail on how that works. One thing that I would suggest you do if you're not really up on what color harmony means and color palettes would be to find a website, and I think I found this one just by typing in the first time I found it, color theory and color wheels. Um, but what's really nice about it is it does a very nice job of explaining things. So I'll make this link available near where this video is posted. So you start out with your basic color wheel, shows you some color theory about warm and cool colors, and then goes through the basic color schemes. So this would be complementary, where they're opposite sides of the color wheel. You have analogous, where they're next to each other. Triadic, where they're equidistant, divided by 3 along the color wheel. Split complementary, where they're opposite, but instead of going perfect opposite, you take either side of the opposite. Then you have some of these geometrics, like the rectangle and the square color theme. And just a really good thing to go and get familiar with and start to make some notes about how things work. For example, a square color scheme is actually 2 complementary color schemes put together. Okay, so let's get started here. One of the first things is the power of how this can make you create a color palette. So let's say that your client gave you this color to start with. So you know that you have to have that, but you have license over what goes with it. So one way you can use this palette, which is usually housed right here with the color palette, but if for whatever reason you don't have color guide, you would just come up to window and find color guide, and then that palette would open up, and I would suggest that you keep this one out here in the palettes. So a very super easy way to use this would be to just select this color. If that color is not forward for whatever reason, like let's say for example this color is forward, what you do is you just have to pick the right color, bring it forward. So there, that brings that forward. We go back to the color guide and then click on it, and it'll set that as your base color. Now all you have to do is just go to these drop downs and say, is there anything kind of interesting to me for these colors? So for this one, we'll just choose a simple, let's just go with the triad. So then you get shades and tints of the triad. So if this was your design, then you can pick from here. And as long as you still have to use your eye, but the general idea is that these color combinations together are based on tried and true color theories, so that using these colors together, as long as you kind of do it in the right amounts, will look nice together. Okay, so that's one way of using it. The other is, and let me just get rid of this, has a stroke on it for some reason. It should just be black like the others. Okay. Okay. So maybe you don't know what color you want to start with or what color theory. Well, then you can use this color guide with the edit apply colors. Click on that, click and edit inside of here, and now you're back to this color wheel. And right here controls whether it's dark or light. So let's make a real lively, bright color palette. So because the last thing we used was a triad, that's what it's set at right now. This darker outline is my base color, what everything's going to be based on. So notice that our base color out here is changing on the fly as we do this. But let's say we don't want a triad. So then we just come back up here and I don't know, just for this time let's pick a right complement. So what that means is instead of being a perfect complement, it just uses only the complement to the right, whereas the complement we looked at on the website was both to the left and the right. Or the full split complementary. And then let's just shift our base color. Let's say we want it to be somewhere in here. And so we have this set up nice and bright here, really bright. And then now I can go ahead and I can just click OK, and I get these colors out here. But I can also add them to my swatches panel, and I can save them out in various ways. So let's actually do that. Let's go to the color guide, click on it again. I'm going to go into edit here, make sure that that's what I want. And then I'm going to name this. So I'll call this split 1. And then I go over to here to new color group, and it adds the color group to right here. Click OK. So now that's saved out, and now that shows up in my swatches panel. And if I go back to color guide, then I get the tints and the shades of that as well. So now I can just go in here, color my design, make sure that the fill is forward, and just go ahead and start making a design based on that. Now, the beauty of this is when you color things this way, you can recolor them right in one quick. So if I just said, what would this look like instead of being so bright? I want to darken it up a little bit overall. Or I said, yeah, I don't like that, even that color theory that I have right now. I want to go with something else. So let me just finish this and we'll see that. Oh, and I did notice that my color shifted to the wrong palette. So I just went back, selected this color. Now the color guide is showing the proper colors that we made. I think I accidentally clicked on this and it went to this. So all I would need to do is go back, click on this, and now I have the, well, let's make sure that it is indeed still the triadic. Yeah, okay, we're good. Cancel out of there. I'll fill this in, come back, show you what I was talking about. Okay, so now that you have this made, we can change the colors very easily on here. I'm just make a copy of this so we can see what we started with originally. So if we said, that's just a little too green for me, then we can select it, click over here, or also you can get to that option up here, Recolor Artwork. Now, one thing that I have a hard time getting used to, and you should probably get used to it sooner than later too. Well, there's actually two things. One, sometimes the colors shift away in here, so you have to click on this. And the other is when you go over to edit mode, by default, when you recolor artwork, the link harmony colors is broken. Kind of defeats the purpose of using this, in my opinion. So you have to remember to link that if you want to keep your colors. But okay, so if we don't really like that shade of green that's over here, we can just kind of move this out. You know, let's say we want it to end up more towards the blues. We'll just shift everything like that, and then instant recoloring of our artwork. And we can, we can do a whole bunch of these to see what happens here. We could, and we can make much more drastic changes than that. We can select this, go back into here, make sure that we're working from where we started, go back into edit, link this again, and I agree with you. That's kind of silly that we have to keep doing that. But we could go ahead and change out the whole entire harmony rule now. So if we wanted to go to complementary 2, and it does its best job to match the colors that were to the colors, it bases their values and things like that. It might not always give you exactly what you want, but it's pretty incredible how close it can come. Notice that even the black changed in there on our stroke. You have an interesting option here. Let me just cancel out of that. Go back in, and this time I'm going to set a different feature in here. Before I edit the colors, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into this assign mode, and I'm going to click on here where it says color reduction options, and I'm going to click to preserve the blacks, and that way it'll leave the solid blacks alone. And now we'll pick a different theme, and the blacks stayed alone. Another option that you have here in the color guide is right now it's showing us shades and tints of these colors. I can go up here to the little selection menu and I can choose to show me warm or cool variations. So your main colors are always going to be down the middle. Now it's showing you warmer and cool variations of them. And you can also go to vivid and muted variations of them. I think the tints and shades are a little bit safer bet of sticking within a color harmony. It just depends, how crazy you're going with it. If you have a very complex color palette and you start using the warms and cools, you could still end up making a pretty gaudy looking project. Also in this little menu, you have the choice of saving these center colors into your swatch panel. So if you click here and you click Save Colors as Swatches, go to the swatch panel, they now show up there. You can also, if you want more than 4 steps on each side or less than, you could change that there as well. Just a couple things that you should probably be aware of when you're using the color guide. No matter what mode you're in, color mode, it doesn't change the effect of this wheel. So just because you're in CMYK doesn't mean that this wheel is going to start to look any different. And then you have your hue, value, and saturation. So you can, go down here and slide to different hues, different saturation levels, and different brightness levels, so that just changes inside of there, which is more equivalent to sliding this. So I probably wouldn't mess with the brightness down here. And if you're wondering what mode this color wheel is actually based on, it's LAB. So if you compare this to a regular color wheel, you'll see that it has more tones in the warm area that relate to skin tones. So LAB colors are usually a little bit better for human artists to work with. And then you have this Recolor Art box, which I suggest you always keep that checked. Otherwise, if you don't, you can spin this around all day and it won't recolor the artwork that you have selected out here. And just another little thing about saving out color palettes. Let's say we select this whole group and we decide that we're going to make some changes to this. And let's say we really like that. We can just name that right in here. And then click the plus button to save it. And then if later on we realize, oh, that's not quite so much what I was after, we can then just go back in here, edit it. Now because it's a named palette in here, we can just click on it to have that selected, and then if we make a little bit of a change to it, notice that it becomes italicized. So when we click OK in here, it's going to ask us if we want to save that. At least I think it will, yeah. And so now that color palette has changed a little bit, and it should have changed in here as well. And if we hover over this, let's see, does the name, yeah, the name shows up. And if we didn't like the name, we can always rename. I think there's an easier way to do that in here. Yeah, you just double click on this and it brings you into here, and you just give it a different name. Yeah, I would need to select yes when it asks me if I want to make the changes, and then it will name it the new name in here. So it doesn't make a copy of it, just renames it. Next video we'll talk about some more details about changing existing artwork.